The internet, it's a great boon. Uh, it provides us with many wonderful, valuable things. But it also creates a number of headaches, problems, and in fact, we wouldn't really have the phenomena of so called fake news, really without the internet. It was really only sort of a matter of time in which it became sort of that great well of which somebody stands next to and goes, I think the water is poisoned, right? Uh, and certainly within the Muslim community, that has become very much the case. And I was really kind of, I was taken aback by something that I witnessed today. Um, I'm just a little bit awestruck, and I thought that I would, use it as maybe sort of a teaching moment. It was somebody that was giving I don't know, a live stream lecture talk, and they were commenting about the Quran, and in doing so, they had mentioned that um, let me look here. Yeah, I mean, they mentioned that essentially the story of Isa alayhi salam and his mother, particularly his mother, uh, and his being born without a father, that apparently this is not the story that the Quran advocates. And at first I was like, am I, man, maybe, something wrong with my connection? I don't understand what I'm hearing. And then it kept going, and I'm like, okay, so this person is truthfully advocating that Isa, alayhi salam, Jesus, was not born through, for lack of a better word, miraculous means, that he was born through conventional means. I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. And then I started to see the reactions of some people. I'm like, wow, people are going for this. And I'm like, is this some kind of like neo Mu'taziliya? Is there some like weird resurgence of like, it's like that moment in Harry Potter where Voldemort comes back and that dude is like, he's back. Like the Mu'tazila are back, right? The hyper rationalists that demand that all of Islam, not aspects of it, appeal to rational sensibilities, but that all of it must appeal to rational sensibilities. Um, I was like, wow, what am I listening? So of course, I'd made a quick comment, but I didn't want to turn it into at that moment. I wasn't going to derail the conversation, and I made a couple comments like, wow, are you really serious that you're doing this? And the person was like trying to give their, yeah, I did it for the, okay, whatever, man. So naturally, I decided to crack open a couple of books, and for instance, I'm looking both at it's a tafsir called Adwa al-Bayan في إيضاح القرآن بالقرآن, as many of you may know, by Sheikh Muhammad Al-Amin Al-Shanqiti, very well-known scholar of the modern period, I guess you could say, who basically did what a tafsir of the Quran, right, an explanation of the Quran by itself, explaining itself. As well as actually there's also a Moroccan scholar that has also a tafsir Qur'ani bil Quran, dirasa tarikhiya wa nadariya. His name is Dr. Muhammad, I think it's pronounced Qajwi, not Qajwi, but I believe Qajwi, Moroccan scholar. I think he's he's in the Rabat at the university there. So anyway, just looking through a couple, I'm like, what really bothers me, not to go and try to even really spend a lot of time refuting, right, the claim, is that it's the mindset, right? Because really the implication of this is that, forget about, that apparently Jesus did have an earthly father, and therefore Mary then apparently did commit fornication, which is like, wow. But that the explanation was given was that, well, basically this idea of the virgin birth, the Virgin Mary and the miraculous conception of Jesus, right, is a Christian idea that came along after the birth of Christ, something that Christians later on developed. And then when the Muslims came around, when the Prophet ﷺ came around, he basically latched on to this, or it just became part of accepted dogma amongst the Muslims. The part that that really makes me itch is the implications is that, okay, you're saying that a very, very important aspect of Muslim belief about one of the major canonical prophets, right, that his origin story is not, one cannot be found we cannot take the Quran on face value, right? I'm trying to find a way to say this in the simplest way. It's like what this mindset does is that, one, the Quran can't even be taken on face value. That it is not Kitabun Mubin. It is not a clear and straightforward book. It is rather a book that is deceitful, right? It's a book that is not reliable and not deceitful. So looking at it and just reading the verse, straight away, this cannot be as it is, right? So when Gabriel visits Maryam, right? قال إنما أنا رسول ربك لأهب لك غلاما زكيا, right? I am only a messenger from your Lord who has come to what? Wahaba, to give you, right? So when you give, this is where it's like, I don't know, is this either ignorance of the Arabic language or something more deceitful? Because to wahaba li shay, you have to have something, right? This is not, this idea that everything is majaz, everything is metaphor. Where do we get this inclination, which is not against majaz, right? Which, is a contested thing in the Quran. Is there majaz? Is there not majaz, right? But even for those that certainly allow for majaz in the Quran, if you scholars like Al-Jurjani and whatnot, right? They don't advocate, right, for, that's my sweet potatoes being done. They don't advocate for it just entirely. In fact, even the Mu'taziliyah, they had some rules. Like, this is something even more, misguided than that. And therefore, we cannot just read the verse as it is. It cannot be. And of course, Imam Ash-Shanqiti goes through and gives a pretty straightforward, how is this being arrived at, right? قَالَتْ إِنِّي يَكُونُ لِي غُلَامٌ. Maryam says what? How can I have a boy? It should not be possible. What? وَلَمْ يَمْسَسْنِي بَشَرٌ وَلَمْ أَكُ بَغِيًّا. That no man has touched me, and I am not somebody that's going to fornicate. I'm not some ratchet woman. I'm not loose. So the implication would be then she's lying, and that she actually did what? Fornicate with somebody and have this kid? This is insanity, right? This goes against the nature that, one, the Quran is reliable. Two, and these kinds of personalities, they insert themselves. I don't know if it's just like, is it a generational thing? I don't get it. When I was young and a Muslim, we didn't have this kind of stuff. I don't know if it's something that the internet brings out, that social media brings out, that people are in need of attention, because it seems like these people are always transacting exclusively. Like the only currency they transact in is something controversial, and if it isn't, then they'll manufacture it. And this is just really disturbing. And therefore, the implication is that you cannot rely upon the straightforward message of the Quran. It must fit into some sort of hyper-rationalist, materialist sense, and if it doesn't, then it's abrogated, right? And therefore, not only that, but somehow this deviant understanding that Jesus was miraculously born without the intervention of a father, or the involvement of a father, is that the ulama for 1400 years, like the scholars of Islam, I mean, we're talking about even from people like Az-Zamakhshari, who was a Mu'tazila, to Dhaharis like Abu Hayyan, to Tabari, to Ibn Kathir. I mean, like all of these names you can throw out with incredibly brilliant people for 1400 years. You're telling me either they were duped by the Christians to be complacent in this, or they corroborated with them and chose to go along with it even though that they knew it was false, advocating this as a false story. This is so unbelievably bad-mannered and deceitful that people advocating this, they should really cease and desist from what they are doing. You know, when you look at another telling of this story, like from Surah Ali Imran, once again, Maryam talks about قال الربي, أن يكون لي غلام ولم يسسني what? Bashar. Allah, how can I possibly, my Lord, how can I possibly have a kid when no man has touched me? قال كذلك what? قال كذلك Allah. Allah says what? That's how it's going to be. يخلق ما يشاء. That is how Allah will create without a man touching you, right? إِذَا قَضَى أَمْرًا فَإِنَّمَا يَقُولُ لَهُ كُنْ فَيَكُونُ. Now, we all know this very famous aspect of the Quran, right? And when Allah wants a thing to be, He just so says, what? كُنْ فَيَكُونُ. But apparently in the mutated Neo-Mu'taziliya Quranic worldview, God Himself is constrained by the laws, so to speak, that He created. And therefore, if Allah wants a thing to be, He must make it manifest through these natural means, that He Himself is constrained by His creation. This is such bad adab. It's like almost really, you can't even articulate it. It's insanity. And it's an insult to, good people who are trying to, learn their religion, trying to practice, and being duped and confused through some kind of puppet show that is mesmerizing people. And simply, it's like, it's funny. I in some ways, I almost purposely don't have a wall of, fancy Arabic books behind me. I actually have a massive, massive home library with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books in Arabic. But when I do these little things, I don't actually do that where oh wow, he must be really smart because he's got, racks and racks and racks of fancy looking scholarly books, and therefore, wow, he must have read them all, must be a pretty smart guy. No, you can see one little bookcase kind of in the back. You can't see hardly anything at all. And I have my closet, covered with the shawl so you don't see, my dirty laundry. And I just feel like, is that what it's reached now? Like all you need is like a stack of books behind you and a little bit of nomenclature and then a little razzle dazzle and a little controversy, and that's it. So, this is extremely insulting to people's intelligence. It's insulting to 1400 years of scholars that have stood upon this. It's insulting to the Prophet ﷺ who delivered this message, of which his companions understood it this way. It's an insult to reduce, critical parts of Muslim belief, creed, and theology to something that Christians cooked up. So anyway, I'm burning my sweet potatoes. You'll have to excuse me. Just be very careful of who you take your deen from. And inshallah, I pray that, this coronavirus thing will abate so that we can get back to sitting with people in learning, cracking open real books and studying, and sitting at the feet of one another, and learning versus all of this, virtual juju mumbo jumbo. So, وصلي وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين.